I miss the Etch-a-Sketch. That took serious skills, and there's something cathartic about shaking something to erase it. Welcome to Keeping Commerce Weird. I'm your host, Travis Hess, CEO of Commerce. And as a reminder, when we say weird, we mean honest, quirky, human, and most importantly, authentic. Because as we know, commerce is full of unexpected stories and niche brands, sharp operators, creative weirdos, and amazing humans who are changing how we shop every day. And with all the AI and agentic movement going on right now, commerce is finally no longer boring. In fact, I'd argue it's more exciting now than ever. So sit back, eat, drink, multitask, whatever blows your hair back, and enjoy. Today is all about AI, as it is in all of our LinkedIn feeds. It's crazy how quickly, honestly, this has evolved and has sucked literally all the air out of the room. It's part of why things are as exciting as they are, quite frankly. It's disrupting the industry in so many interesting ways. And to just think of where it was a couple years ago, with basic chat bots and some clunky recommendations and personalization, which has evolved over time, certainly, how quickly we've moved into generative AI and agentic, and just the pure speed of adoption and users and buyer behavior, arguably the fastest growing technology in the history of man. A very appropriate guest today. As I say often, I am just the lettuce in the wrap and a delivery mechanism. You're here for the filling. Lucky enough today to have Sharon Gee, who I've known for many, many years in the space, has a massively rich history just in general, which we'll find out a little bit more about. With that, let me welcome in Sharon Gee, who runs AI product for us here in Commerce. Sharon, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Travis. It's exciting to be here.
Let's talk personally really quickly, because I find, and again, this isn't scripted. We're just going to jam. I find your personal history amazing. Although a lot of us that have known you for a long time know that you're an accomplished opera singer, which, by the way, is one of the most unique traits ever. I had the opportunity to actually go attend my first opera with you in Sydney at the Opera House, literally this month, which, again, I wouldn't say was on my bucket list, nothing personal to you, the Opera House, or opera in general. But if I were to go to an opera for the first time with somebody, I mean, what better place to do it than with you and at the Opera House, one of the most legendary forums for this. But give folks watching that don't know you really quick history, because I think your personal foundation and your professional foundation is very unique and, dare I say, weird.
Yeah, I would say it's weird. I so kind of like being a sports athlete in college. I've been singing since I was like 10, and so you go to school for something people pay you to go to school for a lot of times, because you don't get out of school with loans, and so I was lucky enough to get full rides to go to college to study music, and so was singing for a really long time and studied to be an operatic soprano. Got both an undergrad and a master's degree in vocal performance, but I double majored in my undergrad with business, and so was singing with a number of companies. And when I was in New York, I realized very quickly that you could make like tens of dollars doing this career, right? And so at the time, Mad Men was on TV, and I was like, man, where do creative people get paid? Like, where do the weirdos like actually make money? And I was like, advertising. I went in and kind of moxied my way into an office manager job. And after 6 months of reading emails and realizing kind of how the machine worked, I was like, aha, I need to be on your sales team, please. And so did that for 4 years. And I think I'm something of a cockroach. I can kind of see when things aren't working out. I've played a lot of board games in my life. Probably would have gone to school for engineering if I hadn't been good at music or something. But learned a lot what the systems look like. And so saw very quickly, I was in sales on the kind of the big agency side, and realized that there was these systems integrators that were starting to like win deals because they were implementing on software instead of custom building everything. And I was like, whoa, what is that? And then realized I needed to kind of move over to systems integration, because that's where the money was going. So, call me an incentivized creature in that way. And then realized I was sick of building the integrations and scoping the integrations that should have just been done by the platforms in the first place. And so joined Commerce to lead the relationships with our largest technology partners. So Google, Meta, Amazon, TikTok, Walmart, all of those. And now now that AI is here, it turns out, commerce is weird again. It's fun. We're rewriting the rules of the internet because all of a sudden you have to figure out how to trust an agent and a shopping agent and a merchant agent and have like an authenticated logged in checkout experience. And that's pretty weird. So, not a typical background, but I would say always hoping to help enterprise merchants do what they need to do next to grow in this space.
Yeah, a cockroach. I would not have expected you to compare yourself to that, although I've never expected myself to compare myself to iceberg lettuce with very little nutritional value, although maybe that is apropos. Would love your perspective. Like, let's talk like high level where we are today. Everyone talks about agentic, everyone's talking about agents, everyone's talking about MCP. There's all these weird acronyms. It feels like, it's one step forward, two steps back. Everyone's waiting for shopping to be enabled. Like, what say you?
Yeah. So I think the eras discussion is really important because, for the past like 10 to 15 years, you pay Google or Meta and you upload your catalog there, you buy product listing ads and they plop, you know, uh, traffic onto your .com. And then you work really hard to get it to convert from 2 to 5% conversion rate on a D2C experience. And that has been kind of the game for the past like 10 to 15 years. Well, what's really interesting is with the big, with the consumer behavior adoption of the chat GPTs and the Geminis and the perplexities of the world, the, consumer apps powered by conversational AI is the fastest adopted technology in like human history. Faster than the cell phone, fast, and that's amazing and exciting because what it means is all of the eyeballs went to a thing that has obvious utility and power and to create an amazing experience for humans, be they consumers or be they B2B users, and we saw recently that ChatGPT just published kind of how people are using the categories of requests and all those kind of things that are coming across the queries. So we were in this phase. Well, let's call it the shopper to merchant phase, where Sharon would go to Anthropologie.com and she'd look for a dress that she wants to wear to her friend's wedding. And I would sort and filter by color and size and price and all those things. But now we've entered this era that's like, I would call it an agent to merchant era, where Sharon now goes to ChatGPT or Perplexity and says, "Hey, I'm looking, I have this whole conversation about where I'm going in Italy and how hot is it going to be and what should I wear and what color should I wear and what are some of the latest trends I should be considering? And okay, can you suggest some products for me or brands that I might not know about? I usually wear a size 10 from this one." It's this big long query, and you know, that's going to require merchant data to get good answers. So now we're in this like, agent to merchant experience. And where we're going is this agent to agent experience, because we had imagined in a very, very near term future that, there will be shopping agents like Gemini, and a merchant agent will be able to interact and probably even negotiate on our behalf. Now, I think the human is going to stay in the loop. We like shopping. We like being able to make our own decisions, but we don't like having to go to 10,000 websites and all the tabs and things that you have to do in order to find the perfect thing. We would love that research to be curated. And then if it's something we know that we want, we might want to use our thumbprint to buy it right away. So if I'm, just rebuying the mascara that I buy from Sephora every single time I ever get it, I might be willing to do that with a thumbprint. But if I'm buying a new couch, this new agent to agent experience might really help me in doing research, because I know that I need a green right side Chase Lounge armchair, experience that I want for my office. And I want to be able to visualize it. And so now that agent to agent experience is going to be able to have shoppers say, authorize it to do research on their behalf. And it's going to have merchants authorize it to maybe even offer, if it knows enough about me, offer me a discount, right? The kinds of experiences you currently have in a .com in order to compel people to try your brand out. So those eras are really important to know where we are and where we're going, because the agent to agent where we're going, that requires new protocols, because we've got kind of like three new truths of the internet right now. One is that the customer is the channel. Like, the customer is wherever they are, that's where the data needs to be. The
Yep.
second is that we need better data. Like, data is the new storefront. If it is true that we are no longer clicking through to .com experiences as often because we get a lot of our research done up front, it means that those conversion rates on those .com experiences are going to be higher. But it also means that we need to get that data for consideration out into the solution. So data is the new storefront. The customer is the channel, and agents our customers too. So now the internet that was built for humans, the HTML that we all look at because we we get overwhelmed with too much information, that's not how robots work, right? That's not how the agents want to consume the data. They want to be able to consume it in a highly structured, contextually relevant way and then be able to surface it to do a job, whatever the request is. And so what that means as we move to this agent to agent world is where those acronyms you mentioned are coming from. We need
Yeah.
new protocols. So, because the way that the data has currently been handed back and forth along the APIs that we built to date isn't enough. It's not. And so you see people like Anthropic and Google coming out with MCP or A to A. And of course, we've seen open web standards like WebBot Auth needing to be implemented in order to make sure that it's a trusted, we can know who the agent is, because a lot of this can be fraud vectors. So I think when we think about where we're at in those three eras and what the three truths are that we need to participate in that world, we can kind of contextualize like, why is everybody talking about this thing? Why is agent the word of 2025?
I mean, I'm privileged to talk to you all the time, so I feel like you and I have these conversations certainly weekly, if not daily. But like for the audience, right, many of which aren't as immersed in this on a daily or weekly or even monthly basis, give me like three big things top of mind that is in space that you're immersed into on a daily basis, and what's top of mind for obviously merchants that we're dealing with.
Yeah, so AI is a big buzzword, and I think if you break it down into like what does it mean for me, there's some important pieces to consider. One of them is data is the new storefront. We know that the behavior around where you do your research and how much time you're spending on direct to consumer sites is really changing. And so that's a big top of mind, number one. Number two is that the customer is the channel now. Wherever they are, we have to get that better enriched contextual data out to them wherever they are, whether that's on a social channel, whether that's, they're querying in their favorite consumer AI powered app like a ChatGPT or a Perplexity, as well as on an owned.com experience, that a merchant might own, or a conversational brand agent that they may be building in the future. So the customer is the channel. We have to get the data to them wherever they are. And then the third thing I would say is that, we built the internet for humans, but agents are customers too. We need to build a new internet, and the data needs to flow in a way that where that experience for agents, they can get the data they need. Humans love HTML and visual experiences. We like, a reduced amount of information so that we can parse and think, but that's not how agents work. They need access to contextualized data so that they can answer queries. And so these are the things that are kind of top of mind for me in the AI era that is really helping us frame, where our merchants need to think about making investments in order to be able to meet these new changes in this AI era.
Yeah. So that being said, I'm going to make a bold statement. Would you agree that it's never been more important for merchants, branded manufacturers, retailers, manufacturers, distributors, whomever, organizations to own their own data than it is right now?
Now, the .com experience is going to continue to be important, but the data is the thing that you have control over. And so investing in that and getting it ready so that you are agile and ready for whatever comes next, it's the way to kind of future-proof the business. It's the way to, make sure that the brand still shows through, because it's really where the differentiation is. If everyone has access to the same AI solutions, what is the difference? It's in how your brand shows up within the data. So yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. What are you seeing from your perch in terms of like kind of some of the challenges? You talk with our biggest customers and many in the space, our biggest partners as well. What are you seeing?
I'm seeing a lot of angst, obviously. I mean, the paradigm is shifting. You're seeing organizational change too. You're seeing this blend of marketing and commerce, groups that used to sit and operate almost separately just based on how you kind of alluded to earlier, the way this was run for the last 15 years. You're driving people to search terms and search engines and things like that, and in the hopes of organically and through paid, landing them on your own domains. And then that's obviously, grown over time into marketplaces and this giant proliferation of channels. And to your point, the customer ultimately is the new channel regardless. of where they want to engage you, you need to be able to go there with value. And even in use cases where they're not even transactional channels, right?
Mhm.
They may not be transacting online, but you may be influencing a more high involvement product or a more commoditized product where you're trying to, engage with loyalty and value and experience to go influence purchase behaviors on non-owned channels or retail channels, as an example. So, a lot of angst, a lot of almost wanting to be led, because again, as a brand, I think most see the world through the lens of their own brand. Unfortunately, that's always kind of been the case. I think the advantage we have, and certainly agency and GSI partners have, is they see the world through the lens of many clients. And so they're constantly curious, what are other folks doing? What's best practice? How do we create the organizational readiness, if you will, to execute against this now and in the future? And to your point, we talk a lot about brand ethos, especially with enterprise brands. We deal with a lot here.
Sure.
They're very, very particular about how they show up, where they show up, and who they show up next to. So it's almost like that's always been important to brands, regardless. And now really the data is what's driving ultimately that brand experience. In some cases, on surfaces that they don't necessarily control.
Yeah.
So it's this balancing act of readiness, angst, and future proofing with some education and kind of cutting the steak up too, right? It's how do you do this in bite-sized chunks and allow
Yeah.
them to digest it in a way that doesn't make them sick.
I like what you said about kind of the angst around organizational readiness. That's one of the things that I think is going to get really weird. And, if we're talking about what's weird in commerce is organizationally, it's been like the marketers who know how to adjust and tweak data within an inch of its life in order to get better outcomes from an AI powered solution like Google for years. But a lot of times that marketing team isn't actually who's talking to there's a lot of the silos are showing. Like the
Yeah.
ads team isn't talking to the marketplace team who has different kinds of data. And we talk about this as like data maturity. So like level 1 data is like your ads data. What do you send to Google? Title, description, image, color, inventory, price, attributes. And then the level 2 data is like the marketplace data. Level 3 data is the PIM data. Level 4 data and 5 data is like unstructured data that comes from content and marketing and product teams. And the challenge is that all of those people don't really talk to each other every day, right? They're siloed. And so I think what's going to get weird is that we're going to see a lot of organizational change because they're going to have to break down the silos in order to be able to get that substrate of the data as the underpinning, fuel for how they show up across any channel, whether it's owned or third party.
The models are changing, which is fascinating, but you've got to open your mind to it and understand it's not all there yet. So you've got to have a little bit of faith, and a lot of vision, to actually go execute, get this scale. And so, to your point, lots of opportunity, lots of uncertainty, and lots of angst at the same time because you're having to orchestrate this at the same velocity as a lot of the ancillary capabilities, including the answer engines, like what they're willing to take on, how they're taking it on, what their commercial models are, what they will be. These are still things that are being, kind of fleshed out. As you know, you live in this more than I do. It's fascinating. Like it is, for
It's actually fun.
someone,
Like, it's
it
fun
is.
again, right? Like, we've been doing the same, like, tiny tweaky optimization game, on a lot of the stuff, and I see this pendulum swing. It used to be, like, big, everything was custom builds, and the creativity was endless, right? When you think, those big everything was a ground up build. It was so creative because you could literally reimagine an experience and all of the way the data rails needed to flow. Obviously not super efficient, but now it's like we're back to creativity. It's like everything's new again because this new foundational technology unlocks so many opportunities for us.
Yeah, I mean, the reality and conclusion, I mean, shit is getting weird. Where do you see this going? Like what like in almost an exaggerated form, which might be like 18 months out, quite frankly, with as quickly as this is moving.
Yeah.
Like where does this go? And you don't have to be right. Like we're not going to hold you to it. Well, maybe people are betting on it, but we're not betting on it. At least not laying money on it. Where's the craziest place this could go?
Yeah, I think what's really fun is to contemplate what happens when all of a sudden a merchant agent has a perfect understanding of the merchant's data and and a shopping agent has a perfect understanding of what the shopper is looking for. So, when we think about Wild in the B2B space, think about being able to just talk to a sales associate that doesn't frustrate you when you want to buy all of the products that you need to reorder. I know that's crazy as an idea, but like I think agents are in such a better position to be able to know all of that information. And if I want to talk to them and reorder something at 2 a.m., I don't have to wait for a sales associate to do that. But
Yeah.
I think B2B has an opportunity to leapfrog, right? A lot of the reason that it's been challenging for B2B businesses to get online in the first place is because their data is in a bunch of different places. It's in PDFs. It's, and that's a problem that LLMs can solve really well. So one of the
No doubt.
weirder counterculture predictions maybe is that I think that agentic is one of the biggest opportunities for B2B in the very near term and eventual future. They're the manufacturers of the product. They know the data best, and if they can get it into a place where they can really harness agentic, it's going to be huge. So that's one. I think the second, when we think about what's going to get weird from a consumer perspective, I think people are getting much more comfortable with this kind of thing than anybody ever expected. And so the demand from consumers, I don't want to type on a keyboard anymore. Like I hope and pray that we are the last keyboard and mouse generation. I hope that I am not glued to a screen for the rest of my forever, and that
What about the old Palm Pilot? Would you take the little pencil thing? Would you?
little stylus, little writing.
I take an etch. I miss the Etch-a-Sketch. That took serious skills, and there's something cathartic about shaking something to erase it. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
I like okay,
Sorry.
so we'll implement that feature for you. I really
Appreciate
think
it.
that
Yeah.
removing the friction in being able to get ideas out, the rate at which we're seeing people communicate with a ChatGPT for ideation or validate my idea or help me become better or help me imagine my future, like there's so many different use cases where I think that we're just dipping our toes in the water. We see people wearing devices all day, every day, speaking to them where their whole consciousnesses are going to be uploaded soon. And we're going to be able to build, there's going to be an agent Travis who knows how to interact with the next generation of people and all of the background around what it was like in the, kind of early and late 2000s, I think. So I'm pretty excited about where things are going. I would say I'm embracing it. I think that while we embrace that technology, one of the other predictions is that we really got to get the data security right, because there's so much risk. Like data is power, it is the fuel, and if wielded inappropriately, it can be really dangerous, right? Like with all the fraud and kind of security vectors that we've seen. But I think that the opportunity, I'm an optimist, the opportunity for us to leverage this in the future, where the experiences that we can create free us from kind of this technology screen tether that we are also, unfortunately addicted to because it's our job or otherwise. I think we've got this huge opportunity to really reintegrate ourselves into a much more seamless interaction, whether that's a shopping interaction or whether that's just like day-to-day life. And so that's where I see it going.
Sharon, I as always appreciate the time. As I've mentioned earlier, back to the theme of the show. I mean, shit is needless to say, is getting really weird in the space and in a really good and exciting way. But, again, as we've said, weird is where the breakthroughs often start. I think that's already been happening. It's going to continue to happen. You're one of the few people in my life where I feel like every time I talk to you, I learn something new. Despite not being able to keep up with your train of thought, I find myself taking mental notes and occasionally written notes. I appreciate the partnership. I appreciate you carving out time to join me today. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for taking time out today. It's been great.
Thanks for the opportunity. It was great.
For those out there, please watch our Big Summit YouTube playlist, where you can specifically see Sharon's product roadmap session and some of the experience-driven customer panel sessions that overlay with a lot of the topics from today. There's an AI theme across many of those sessions. You can find the link in our episode description. With that, we'll talk to you soon.